Ginny Baker, I said. I took a deep breath. There was so much I wanted to say about Ginny. Ginny, who'd suffered so much, who'd keep suffering, who couldn't be here because she was busy trying to find ways to finish the job Nick started, to punish herself for the bullying she felt she'd set in motion. Ginny was winner of the Lads and Lassies contest when she was 2 years old. Her mom says she was always putting on talent shows and taught herself how to twirl the baton when she was only 6. Ginny has elected, I paused, trying not to cry, not to put anything in the time capsule. I lowered my head. We went on like that, taking turns offering trinkets and stories about Lynn Young and Amanda Kinney and Max Hills and the others. Mr. Klein's widow sobbed out loud when we placed a quarter in the time capsule on his behalf, symbolizing his habit of tossing quarters at students who answered questions correctly in his class. One of his daughters kept her face buried in the folds of her mother's dress, immobile. We got to the last one, and I walked back down the steps to my seat. I tried not to make eye contact with anyone. The sound of noses blowing was too deafening. Jessica stood at the podium alone then, her feet planted firmly, her nose red but her eyes fierce. Her blonde hair wisped in the wind like cobwebs. There are 2 others, she said into the microphone. I frowned, counted on my fingers. I'd thought we'd gotten them all. Jessica took a deep breath. Nick LaVille, she said, loved Shakespeare. I held my breath. When had Jessica talked to Nick's family? Why had she? Did she do it without me on purpose? I squinted at the bench. Sure enough, Nick's name was there, last on the list of victims. I made a small noise in the back of my throat and covered my mouth with my hand. This time, I couldn't keep the tears from falling, especially when she dropped Nick's old, battered copy of Hamlet, the one he'd read passages of to me so many times, into the time capsule. I barely heard her say, Valerie Leftman is a hero, more courageous than anyone I've ever known. A bullet, the least of the scary things I've seen her face this year. Valerie single-handedly saved my life and stopped the shooting of May 2nd, 2008 from being worse than it already was. And I'm so blessed to be able to call her my friend. Valerie has placed a book of drawings in the time capsule. She produced my black spiral notebook and dropped it in on top of Nick's Hamlet. My reality and Nick's escape, one on top of the other. At first, nobody clapped as Jessica thanked the crowd and took her seat. But then, building up like water coming to a boil, smattering applause broke into steady clapping. A few people, those who had themselves under control, stood in front of their chairs. I turned my head and looked. Mom and Dad were both clapping and wiping their eyes. Dr. Healer was standing in front of his chair, not bothering to wipe his. Mr. Angerson stepped back up to the podium and got us back to the business of graduating, of getting on with our lives. I thought about the suitcase that lay opened on my bed. My things neatly packed. The picture of me and Nick sitting on that rock at Blue Lake nestled under the underwear and extra bras. The copy of The Gift of Fear that Dr. Healer had bought me, with an admonition to stay safe. The stack of calling cards Dad had wordlessly pressed into my hand last Saturday when he came to pick up Frankie. The college catalogs I'd gotten from Mrs. Tate. I thought about the train that I would catch in the morning, destination unknown, and how Mom would probably cry at the station and beg me once again not to go, at least not without a plan, and how Dad would probably look relieved as I watched him grow small through the window as the train pulled away, and how I wouldn't blame him for it if he did. I imagined the things I might miss while away. Would Mom and Mel get married without me there? Would I miss seeing Frankie get his first job? Maybe lifeguarding at the neighborhood pool? Would I miss the announcement that Briley was pregnant? Would I miss it all? And hearing about these things, would I feel that they deserved at least that much? My absence during those happy things. You sure about this? Dr. Healer asked me at our last session. You have enough money? I nodded. And your number. But I think we both knew I'd never call it. Not even if I woke in the shadows of a musty-smelling hostel, my leg aching and Nick's voice echoing in my ears. Not even if my brain finally allowed me to remember the hazy image of Nick putting a bullet in his brain in front of my bleary eyes. Not even to say Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday or I'm fine or help me. He'd hugged me and rested his chin on top of my head. You'll be fine, he'd whispered, although I wasn't sure if he was whispering to himself or to me. And I'd gone home and packed, leaving the suitcase open on my bed next to the horses and the wallpaper, which were, as they had always been of course, completely motionless.